My stepdaughter hid her dad's affair and went on secret trips with them, so I took back every dollar. And left them to tear each other apart. I, 43 female, broke up with my ex, Charlie, 42 male, last spring after finding out that he cheated on me with his ex, Sandy, 34 female. We had been together for 3 years, and up until that point, I thought we had a solid relationship. I mean, I knew no relationship was perfect, but I definitely didn't expect this. From the beginning, things with Charlie seemed pretty smooth. Sure, he had a daughter, Sarah, 17 female, but I was fine with that. I wasn't trying to play mom or anything. Sarah and I never really had that mother-daughter dynamic, but I did my best to be supportive. She'd come to me with problems, mostly because she didn't get along with her actual mom, and I tried to help out where I could. I guess you could say I was the adult she leaned on when things got tough at home. And I thought we were in a good place. I really did, but things started to shift a bit last year. I was working on this big project for a company. It was a huge deal for me. I poured so much of my time and energy into it, and after all the stress and long nights, I finally started seeing the results. The bonuses started coming in this year, and it felt like all that hard work had finally paid off. I was beyond excited. With this new financial security, I wanted to do something special for Sarah. She had been talking for months about what she wanted for her 18th birthday, and I thought, why not make it happen? She wanted this big pajama party for 25 people, with a DJ, balloons, a fancy cake, and even a night at a hotel out of town with her friends. It was going to be a lot, but since I was in a good place financially, I figured I could swing it. I wanted her to have something memorable, you know. I'd been saving up for a while, and I even set up a separate savings account to make sure everything was covered for the party. Around the same time, Charlie started talking about a business idea he had. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for supporting my partner, but this idea of his was not great. It was one of those reinventing the wheel kind of ideas that didn't make much sense. He wanted me to help fund it, and honestly, I wasn't comfortable with that. For one, we weren't married, and two, I just didn't think it was a good investment. I had to look out for myself, you know. Plus, I had already been putting money aside for Sarah's birthday, and I wasn't about to blow all of that on something I didn't believe in. When I told him no, he got pretty upset. He made this big deal about how he needed a supportive partner by his side and how I wasn't willing to help him out with his dream. We had a pretty heated argument about it, and he made me feel like I wasn't being a good partner. But I stood my ground. I wasn't about to throw money at something I didn't believe in, and I wasn't going to jeopardize Sarah's birthday for it either. I felt a little bad about how I said no, though, so I did apologize for being harsh, but I wasn't about to change my mind. After that, things started to feel different. It was like a shift in the air. Charlie became more critical, especially about my appearance. He started making these little comments about my makeup or how I dressed, like I wasn't trying hard enough or something. Then he would casually mention other women, saying things like, "She looks really nice today," or "You should try something like that with your hair." It didn't seem like a big deal at first, but it slowly chipped away at my confidence. I was starting to feel like I wasn't good enough, and that's not a feeling you want in a relationship, right? Looking back, that's when I should have realized something was up, but at the time, I just brushed it off. I told myself he was just stressed about the business thing, or maybe it was just a rough patch. But things didn't get better. And then there was his ex, Sandy. From the very beginning, she had been a bit of a sore spot for me. I didn't have any real issues with her, but the fact that she was still somewhat in the picture made me uncomfortable. At the start of our relationship, Charlie promised me he'd cut ties with her. He told me they had a history, but that it was over, and I believed him. But as time went on, I started noticing small things that didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just him, it was Sarah too. I noticed that Sarah was pretty active on social media, liking and commenting on posts that involved Sandy. It made me wonder if Charlie and Sandy were still talking, but every time I brought it up, Charlie would deny it. He said they weren't in contact anymore, and I chose to believe him. But the doubts never really went away. You know that feeling in your gut when something's just not adding up? Yeah, that was me. I didn't have any solid proof at the time, though, so I let it go. I figured maybe I was just overthinking things, and that's where things stood for a while. I kept trying to focus on Sarah's birthday, getting everything planned and saved for, while Charlie kept pushing his business idea and getting frustrated that I wasn't on board. The tension was there, but I didn't fully realize just how deep the cracks were in our relationship. After that whole argument about the business, things really started going downhill between me and Charlie. It wasn't just the tension about the money anymore, it felt like everything was falling apart. The little comments he made about my appearance kept coming, and every time he did it, it hit harder. I used to feel pretty confident, you know, but he made me second guess myself. I started wondering if I wasn't attractive to him anymore or if he was looking at other women. It just got in my head. What really made me feel off, though, was how weird he started acting. I've always believed that when someone starts acting shady, there's usually a reason behind it. He wasn't the same with me, less affectionate, less involved, and way more distant. It wasn't just that we were fighting more often, it was like he didn't even care enough to fight properly. I'd try to talk things out, and he'd just brush me off or say you're overthinking it. And I mean, maybe I was, but honestly, the signs were all there, and I didn't want to admit it at the time. Then came the trip. I had to go out of town for this 10-day business trip. It wasn't something I could skip, so I left, hoping maybe some space would help clear the air between us. I figured that maybe when I got back, things would be better. But the whole time I was gone, it just got weirder. Our communication was all messed up. He barely called or texted, and when he did, it was always short and kind of cold, like he didn't really care to talk. He'd tell me he was busy or tired, but it felt like excuses, you know. I remember one night I couldn't get a hold of him at all. I must have called a dozen times, and nothing. I even texted him, and it took hours for him to reply. When he finally did, he said he'd fallen asleep early. I wanted to believe him, but it didn't feel right. You can't just ignore the gut feeling when something feels off. It kept happening too, him not answering or being super vague when I asked what he was doing. Normally, he'd tell me about his day in detail, but now it was always like, oh, just ran errands, or was with my mom. It felt like he was purposely not telling me things, and I was starting to lose my patience. I tried bringing it up a few times, asking him why he was being distant, but he just shut me down with stuff like, you're imagining things, or you're being paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid, at least I didn't think so. So, I decided to test him. I told him that my trip was getting extended by a couple of days because of work. That wasn't true, though. I was planning to come home a day earlier. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but something told me I needed to get back and see for myself what was really going on. When I walked into the house that day, everything seemed normal at first glance. But as I was unpacking, I noticed something that stopped me in my tracks. There, in the trash, was used protection. My heart sank immediately. I knew what that meant. There was no reason for it to be there unless someone else had been in my house, and I didn't need to guess who. I felt my whole world crumble in that moment. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was literally right there in front of me. I didn't confront him right away. I don't know why, I guess part of me was in shock. I just stood there for a few minutes, trying to make sense of it all. How could he do this? Why didn't I see it coming sooner? All those doubts I'd been pushing aside, all the weird behavior, it all made sense now. It wasn't just my imagination. He had been cheating on me, and not just with anyone, with Sandy, his ex, the woman he promised me he'd cut out of his life. When Charlie came home that night, he was all smiles, like nothing was wrong. It was almost sickening. I was trying to hold myself together because I didn't want to blow up on him right then and there. He asked how my trip was, and I just told him it was fine. But I could tell something shifted in him when he saw me, like maybe he could sense that I knew something, or maybe he noticed the trash was gone. Because, get this, the first thing he did when he got home was take out the trash and do laundry. He's never done laundry in his life unless I asked him to, so that was a major red flag. I couldn't keep quiet for long, though. A part of me wanted to confront him right away, but the other part wanted to gather more evidence before I went there. So, I waited until he was asleep. And I know it's wrong, but I went through his phone. I couldn't help it, I needed answers. What I found was worse than I even imagined. There were hundreds of messages between him and Sandy, and I'm not talking about just casual chats. These were long conversations, voice notes, pictures, basically, they'd been in constant contact for who knows how long. It was like their relationship had never even ended. They talked about everything, from day-to-day stuff to things they should have been talking about with their actual partners. I felt sick reading through them. The worst part? There were recent photos of the two of them together, smiling like they were in some perfect little world while I was out here being made a fool of. At that point, I had all the proof I needed. I couldn't pretend anymore, and I wasn't about to let him keep living this double life behind my back. But I didn't want to just throw it all out there without thinking things through. I had to figure out what I was going to do next because, let's be real, my life had just exploded, and I needed to process it. That night, I stayed quiet. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. But inside, I was fuming. How could he lie to me like that? How could he disrespect me after everything we'd been through? I didn't deserve any of it, and I sure as hell wasn't going to just sit there and take it. I knew I had to confront him, but the timing had to be right. I needed to catch him off guard, the same way he caught me off guard with his lies. I went to bed that night with my mind racing, playing over everything I'd found and everything I'd been ignoring for so long. I knew the truth now, but confronting him was going to be a whole battle, and I wasn't sure how it would end. The next morning, I woke up knowing I couldn't drag this out anymore. I had spent the whole night turning things over in my head, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion. I'd seen everything I needed to see the night before: Charlie's lies, his messages with Sandy, and the fact that he had been hiding all of it from me. But what really burned? Sarah, my stepdaughter, had known about it the whole time. I had spent 3 years trying to build a relationship with Sarah. I was never trying to replace her mom, but I was always there for her whenever she needed help or advice. I was the one she turned to, and I thought we had a decent bond. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was. I had no idea she'd been keeping secrets from me, big ones. She had known about Charlie's affair with Sandy from the start. And not only that, she had gone on trips with them. There were pictures of her looking all comfortable and cozy with the two of them, like some happy little family, while I was completely in the dark. So, yeah, when I woke up that morning, I was done pretending. I had spent years trying to be the good stepmom, trying to hold everything together, but I wasn't about to let them keep walking all over me. Charlie was acting normal, like nothing had changed. He sat across from me at breakfast, sipping his coffee and talking about his day, as if he wasn't a complete liar. I couldn't even look at him without feeling sick. I had already decided that I wasn't going to drag this out. I wasn't going to waste time waiting for him to come clean because he never would. He was too deep into his lies to even realize how screwed up everything had become. After breakfast, I just came out with it. "Are you still talking to Sandy?" He froze for a second but quickly snapped back, his voice defensive. "No. Why would you even ask that? I told you I'm not in contact with her anymore." I didn't say anything right away. I let him sit in his own lie for a second before I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the photos I found the night before. I didn't bother with the texts. I went straight to the pictures of him, Sandy, and Sarah. They were smiling, standing in front of some campsite, with Sarah sitting between them like one big happy family. There were more pictures from another trip, all three of them together, and it was obvious they were having a great time while I was being lied to, used, and disrespected. I turned my phone around, showing Charlie the pictures. "So, this never happened?" His face went pale. He stared at the phone, and for the first time, I saw panic in his eyes. But he still tried to weasel his way out of it. "It's not what it looks like. I can explain." "Explain what?" I cut him off, my voice cold. "Explain how you've been lying to me for God knows how long? How you've been sneaking around with Sandy while I've been at home playing the fool. How Sarah knew about all of this and went along with it." He opened his mouth, probably to spit out more lies, but I wasn't done. "I'm not stupid, Charlie. I saw the texts. I saw the pictures. You've been dragging me through this whole relationship like I don't even matter. And the worst part? Sarah knew. She knew and she didn't say a damn thing. She was with you both, smiling in these pictures, going on trips, while I sat at home." I could see his brain scrambling for something to say. "Sarah. She didn't want to hurt you," he mumbled. That was it. That was all he could come up with. "She didn't want to hurt me? Are you serious? She's been sitting on this secret, hanging out with you and Sandy, and she didn't think that maybe lying to my face was the real way she was hurting me? The two of you have been making a fool out of me this entire time." He tried again to make excuses. "It wasn't like that. We didn't mean for things to go this far." "Far?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't mean for things to go this far? Charlie, it's gone as far as it's going to go. We're done." His face shifted from panic to something that looked like guilt, but by then, I didn't care. I had seen enough. This wasn't a relationship anymore, it was a complete farce. I thought maybe he'd at least try to apologize, maybe say something to take responsibility, but no. He just stood there, speechless, like he didn't know how to fix what he'd broken. I couldn't stand to be around him anymore. I turned and walked upstairs, my legs shaking as I grabbed a suitcase and started throwing my stuff into it. I wasn't sticking around for any more of this. I was done with the lies, done with being treated like I didn't matter. The more I packed, the angrier I got. I thought about all the times I'd taken Sarah to school, helped her with her problems, supported her, and she had known all along what her dad was doing behind my back. It was like a slap in the face. When I came back downstairs, Charlie was still standing there, looking lost. He tried one more time to speak, but I cut him off. "Don't. Just don't." I walked out the door and didn't look back. Later that day, I went to the bank and closed the account I had set up for Sarah's birthday party. I had been planning it for months, setting money aside to give her the party she wanted. 25 guests, a fancy cake, DJ, the works. But now, There was no way I was going to throw a party for her after all of this. No way. She had betrayed me just as much as Charlie had. She might not have been the one cheating, but she went along with it. She kept their secret, went on those trips with them, smiled in those pictures like everything was fine, all while I had no idea what was happening. I didn't care if it seemed harsh. I wasn't going to throw a party for people who had been lying to me for who knows how long. If Sarah wanted a party, she could ask her dad or Sandy to pay for it. I was done. Charlie reached out to me a few days later, asking me not to cancel the party, saying Sarah had been looking forward to it and how disappointed she'd be. I didn't even bother responding. He had made his bed, and now he could lie in it. I knew Sarah was a teenager, and maybe she didn't fully understand how deep this betrayal ran, but she wasn't a little kid either. She knew right from wrong, and she chose to stay quiet. She chose to keep me in the dark, and that, to me, was unforgivable. After I packed up my things and walked out the door, I thought I'd feel some relief, like maybe I'd finally be free from the mess that had become my life. But honestly, all I felt was numb. The weight of everything was still sitting on my chest, especially the part about Sarah. I had been blindsided by Charlie's lies, but knowing that Sarah had known about the affair and kept it from me, that hit differently. I went straight to Rachel's place after I left. She's been my best friend for years, and I knew I could count on her for a place to crash and some no-nonsense advice. I told her everything, the affair, the trips, the photos, and how Sarah had been in on it the whole time. Rachel's reaction wasn't exactly a surprise. She's always been more skeptical of people than I am, so when I laid it all out, she just shook her head and said, "You're better off without them. All of them." And maybe she was right. Maybe I was better off. But that didn't make it any easier. I kept going over it in my head, replaying the same thoughts. I had spent so much time trying to build a connection with Sarah, being there for her when she needed me. I wasn't her mom, but I cared about her like a parent should. And this whole time, she was going behind my back, playing happy family with Charlie and Sandy. It stung in a way I didn't expect. For the first few days, I tried to just let it go. I buried myself in work, thinking that if I stayed busy, I wouldn't have time to think about it all. But it didn't work. Every time I had a quiet moment, my thoughts drifted back to the betrayal. I kept picturing Sarah in those photos, smiling with them, and it made me sick. I thought maybe cutting Charlie off would be the end of it, but of course it wasn't. A week after I left, Charlie had the nerve to reach out to me, not to apologize, not to admit how badly he'd screwed up, but to ask me not to cancel Sarah's birthday party. I stared at the message for a good 5 minutes before I even knew how to respond. He had the audacity to ask me to keep playing the role of the good stepmom after everything? After I found out that Sarah had known about his affair and kept it a secret? There was no way. I didn't bother responding to Charlie. I was done explaining myself to him. I had canceled the party the same day I moved out and closed the savings account I'd set up for it. There was no chance I was throwing a party for Sarah after what she had done. I didn't care if it was her dream birthday or if she'd been looking forward to it for months. She'd made her choices, just like her dad, and she was going to have to live with the consequences. But still, I couldn't shake the guilt. I kept telling myself that Sarah was just a teenager. Maybe she didn't fully understand the impact of what she'd done. Maybe she was just trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep the peace between her dad and me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that she wasn't some clueless kid. She knew. She had known for a long time, and she had chosen to keep quiet about it. She went on trips with them, hung out with them, and kept it from me like it was no big deal. How was I supposed to just let that go? Rachel, of course, had no sympathy for Sarah. "She's old enough to know better," she said. If she was comfortable enough to go on trips with them and smile in pictures, she knew what she was doing. You don't owe her anything. She was right, but it didn't make the decision any easier. I had genuinely cared for Sarah, and now I was cutting her off like she meant nothing. It felt harsh, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't let them walk all over me. I wasn't going to be the doormat who just kept giving and giving while they lied to my face. Then, about a week after Charlie's message, I got a voicemail from his sister. She was practically begging me not to turn my back on Sarah, saying that she didn't have anything to do with Charlie's affair and that canceling her birthday party would crush her. She even tried to guilt me by saying that they couldn't afford to throw Sarah the party she wanted and how I was her only hope of having a special 18th birthday. I just sat there, listening to the voicemail, feeling like I was being pulled in a million different directions. On one hand, I felt bad for Sarah. I knew she didn't control her dad's actions. But on the other hand, she'd been an active participant in keeping his affair a secret. She wasn't some innocent bystander. She'd gone along with it, and the fact that she was comfortable enough to smile in pictures with them told me that she didn't feel guilty about it at all. I thought about what Rachel had said, "You can't keep holding on to people just because you feel bad." Sometimes you've got to put yourself first. And she was right. I had spent years putting Charlie and Sarah first, trying to make them happy, trying to keep everything together. And where had it gotten me? Betrayed and alone. I wasn't about to let them drag me down any further. I decided that I wasn't going to send a gift. I wasn't going to call or text Sarah. I wasn't going to throw her the party she wanted. It felt cold, but at the same time, it felt like the only way I could truly move on. If she wanted a birthday party, she could ask her dad to throw one, or maybe Sandy. I wasn't going to play the role of the good stepmom anymore. They had taken advantage of my kindness for too long, and I was done. Once I made that decision, I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't happy about it, but at least I wasn't carrying the weight of their drama anymore. I had finally set my boundaries, and for the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself over them. Charlie tried to reach out a few more times after that, but I ignored him. There was nothing left to say. I had given them everything, and they had thrown it all away. I wasn't going to waste any more time or energy on people who didn't respect me, so, that was it. I moved forward without Charlie, without Sarah, and without the baggage of their lies hanging over my head. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And while it hurt to walk away, I knew deep down that I'd made the right choice for myself. Finally, after I made the decision to cut both Charlie and Sarah out of my life, things felt quiet, almost too quiet. I had spent so long trying to hold everything together, trying to be the bigger person and make sure everyone was happy, that when I finally let go, it felt strange. But it wasn't the relief I had been hoping for. It was more like this empty feeling, like I had lost something. I know I did the right thing, but still, walking away wasn't easy. I thought that would be the end of it. I had blocked Charlie, cut ties with Sarah, and figured I wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. But of course, it wasn't that simple. A week later, I got another voicemail, this time from Charlie's sister. She was asking, no, begging, me to reconsider the birthday party I had canceled for Sarah. She went on and on about how disappointed Sarah was, how this was going to crush her, and how she's just a teenager, she didn't know any better. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she seriously trying to guilt me into throwing a party after everything that had happened? It wasn't even about the party anymore. It was about respect, something Charlie and Sarah had thrown out the window a long time ago. Sarah wasn't some innocent bystander who got caught in the middle of her dad's mess. She had known about the affair. She had gone on trips with them, smiled in pictures, and kept it a secret from me the whole time. That wasn't just a mistake, that was betrayal. And now they wanted me to pretend like none of that had happened and go back to being the stepmom who gave and gave and gave? No way. I sat there, listening to the voicemail, trying to figure out what they expected from me. Did they really think I would just show up at Sarah's party, smile, and act like nothing happened, like I wasn't the one who had been lied to, disrespected, and betrayed? It didn't make sense to me how they could be so blind to the hurt they had caused. But then again, Charlie's whole family had been enabling him for years, so I shouldn't have been surprised. The next few days were filled with moments of second-guessing myself. I kept thinking, am I being too harsh? Should I give Sarah another chance? But every time I thought about reaching out, those images of her on those trips with Charlie and Sandy came flooding back. How could I just brush that aside? She had gone behind my back, smiled for those pictures, and then came home to me, acting like nothing was wrong. That wasn't something I could forgive easily, if at all. I talked it over with Rachel. She wasn't about to let me fall back into that trap. Sarah knew exactly what she was doing, she said. You're not responsible for fixing this mess. You've done enough for them. She was right, of course. I had spent years trying to make everything work, trying to keep the peace between Charlie, Sarah, and me. And where had it gotten me? Betrayed and lied to. It was time to put myself first. So, I stuck to my decision. I didn't respond to Charlie's sister, didn't send a gift for Sarah, and I didn't even consider showing up to the party. If they wanted to celebrate, they could figure it out on their own. It wasn't my problem anymore. She is his daughter from a previous relationship. A few months after everything went down, I started hearing bits and pieces of how Charlie and Sarah were doing through mutual friends. People just like to talk, and when they know you've been through something messy, they can't help but fill you in on the aftermath. And let me tell you, it was the kind of news that made me think, well, karma didn't waste any time. The first thing I heard was about Charlie. Apparently, after I left, things between him and Sandy didn't go as smoothly as he probably thought they would. Once I was out of the picture and they didn't have to sneak around anymore, Sandy lost interest. She wasn't as invested in Charlie as he'd hoped. She had fun while they were playing the affair game, but once it became real, once there was no more excitement in sneaking around, she started to pull away. It didn't take long for her to move on, leaving Charlie in the dust. The man who thought he was trading up by cheating on me ended up getting dumped himself. Sandy ghosted him completely, cut him off, and moved on to someone new. I almost laughed when I heard it. Charlie had thrown away everything for her, his relationship with me, his own daughter's trust. And in the end, Sandy didn't even stick around. She left him with nothing but the mess he had made, but the fallout didn't stop there. Sarah, the stepdaughter who had known about the affair and kept it a secret, was having a rough time too. After I canceled her birthday party and cut her off, things between her and her dad got really strained. I guess without me around to help smooth things over, they both realized how messy their relationship had become. Sarah blamed Charlie for everything: the breakup, the affair, her canceled party. And Charlie, being the selfish person he is, wasn't there to fix things or be the dad she needed. The tension between them got worse. Sarah started acting out, skipping school, staying out late, and getting involved with the wrong crowd. She was angry at her dad for ruining things and at me for cutting her off, but she never took responsibility for her part in the whole mess. I guess she thought she could play the victim, but life doesn't work like that. She had chosen to side with her dad and Sandy, and now she was dealing with the fallout of those choices. Things between them got so bad that Sarah ended up moving out. She packed her bags and went to live with her mom, the same mom she'd complained about all the time when she was with me and Charlie. It was ironic, really. Sarah spent years saying she didn't get along with her mom, and now she had no choice but to move in with her because things with Charlie had fallen apart. And as for Charlie, he lost not only his relationship with me but also his relationship with his own daughter. From what I heard, Sarah barely speaks to Charlie now. Their relationship is strained, and Charlie has no idea how to fix it. The man who thought he could juggle it all, me, Sandy, his lies, his daughter, ended up losing everything. He thought he could keep it all together, but in the end, it all came crashing down around him. And as for me? I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. Karma did all the work for me. I can't say I was surprised. Charlie had spent so long lying, manipulating, and putting his own selfish desires above everyone else that it was only a matter of time before it all caught up with him. He lost Sandy, his daughter, and me, and now he was left with nothing but regret. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But then I remembered how much pain he'd put me through, and I didn't waste another thought on it.